Oh my god, dude, you can't that.
Okay. Numbers out. Notes out, laptops away. Could the following students please come and see me right now?
Right now?
Right now. Felix, Zane, Hugo,
Oh, actually, I'm kidding.
Jonathan.
What do we do?
My man.
Oh, is it good?
What do we do?
Come.
He
Hold
found
it.
out about
Where's Felix?
He found out.
Where's
Oh,
Felix?
the herald's gone.
Oh, we have to take
He's not here.
Any of you? Okay. Alejandra, Zoe, Matthew.
Oh, we gotta do a test of it, right?
Is anybody here in the same house as Felix?
No.
What house is he? Who here is in Whittle?
It's probably because
Is he the only Whittle boy? It's because he's so Whittle. I know someone, a new teacher for an entire year, when I referred to Whittle boys, he thought I was referring to Whittle boy. It was interesting. So, hold it. Who am I missing? Dune, Zoe, Matthew.
Oh, God.
Hugo. Zane. You have to write a test.
Okay.
It's in there for tonight. It's in there for tomorrow night in the testing center. On Thursday, in class, if you have not written it, I'm going to grab you, put you in a room here, and you're going to write it here while we're doing something else.
What's this test on again?
You're in trouble.
The whole of genetics?
Yes.
Or just Punnett squares?
Punnett squares and genetics.
Slang word, guys.
How long is it? It's
We
multiple
got it, we
choice?
got it.
There is some multiple choice in it, yes.
As long as we're together,
Yeah.
we got it.
Okay? Okay? So tonight, tomorrow night, or Thursday in class.
Oh, shucks,
Got it?
bro.
Wait.
Everybody?
So I
Good?
can just choose
Excellent.
You
I'd rather not Thursday class because that would
I
be
can't do it
multiple work.
Wednesday because I have to go to
Look,
the...
tonight.
I can't do track today on after.
You had last week. There's no excuses now.
We should do second half like
There are
So figure it out, or it's gonna have to be Thursday in class. I'd
Okay.
rather not do that because you're gonna miss class. Nobody requested.
Don't listen to him.
So, Ariel, we're good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
I like it. That's so
Okay, notebook should be out. Last day's work open. Last day's work open. We were here. Where's last day's work? Last day's work. Come on, let's go.
Here.
That's the no.
Did I see a dollar
You
bill
have that
in
there.
there?
That you worked on that. Notes. Notes
Oh,
out.
okay.
Notes out.
Hugo, what's that?
What's up?
And, where can I find that binder?
I've been
Oh,
having
this?
spontaneous notes,
It's 100 pesos IRT.
Yeah, yours getting dry.
It's less than
What do you do if you get?
It's like
Like,
5%.
it's this.
Yeah, and don't lean back.
I would
Just like this, and you hold it for 10 minutes. 10 minutes. You are forming a clump. And then after that, for at least a week, you don't blow your nose.
So you just walk.
You don't do anything. You just let it heal,
But I ran out.
and you just let it do that. Got it?
Nah,
All
that's
right.
It's happened quite quickly. I think I'm drinking a lot of this.
Alejandra's here, Ariel, and Ben. Bertie's not here. Felix is not here. Hugo's here. Jonathan's here. Kieran Porter here. Lisa here. Matthew Hillhouse. Naomi
I ain't here.
not here. Sahir not here. Where are all these people?
There's a bunch of rugby people.
Oh, sorry.
William Kay here. William Wren here. Zane here. Zoe here. Okay, say 10's done.
There's a lot of people not here. So,
Zoe, Ariel, throw your
Just
separate.
like, relax.
Notes
Because
out, ready to
they're
go?
here, right?
what do we watch?
That's not the notes. That's the worksheet.
No,
Notes.
but I have them.
Oh, open to the right page.
Can
Let's
we
go.
just study the answer?
Can we watch House? It's a documentary.
What?
Yeah, it'll help us.
Stop that. I am hoping to finish this today. After this, we're going to have a little, we're not going to have a test after this section. I think I'll just give you a project, most likely to do with either organic or GMOs, because that will apply some of the evolutionary knowledge that you have. And give you a chance to decide on some ethical considerations as well. So, artificial selection, this is basically just farming. Humans selecting desirable traits in plants and animals. Ugh. Plants. Also, because I'm proud of it, some grade 12s were telling me that these pencils that I offer for free here, if you forget yours as a test, you can go get a pencil. They break all the time, and they were terrible. It was terrible lead. So I went and looked, and I had them look up the types of pencils you can buy. These are the most expensive pencils you can buy. They're supposed to be the best, yet they were still breaking. We discovered through a process of experimentation that manually cranking any pencil produces a torsion in a unique way because you're slightly likely to rotate that breaks the lead as you go through. So for your benefit, we now have
Oh my god.
I'm so impressed. I've never had one before.
Where's also
Yeah. I'm just carrying around sharpened pencils now to stab people.
Yeah. Nothing looks like it.
Hold it. I am. Oh, I know what I'm doing. I think I offered a weird amount of room in this. So,
Yeah.
Oh, lots of room.
Zoe, Ariel, one desk apart.
No.
One desk apart. Before the next step is move you to a new location. Selective breeding. And once we then breed them together, I know over the Saturday with service day, one student of mine in the house was a little shocked because they were inside and the lady was giving them a snack after having them work out in the yard, and then her neighbor came over, and then she found out that her neighbor used to live on a dairy farm, and they have a dairy farm, and then they were talking about how they breed cattle. And then this young man got to hear all sorts of things about breeding and sperm and bulls and cows that he didn't know before.
Who's this?
I'm not going to say who it was because they can do the story. He apparently was a little white-faced because they were fairly detailed. Farmers we're way ahead in technology in terms of just we don't need GMOs for a lot of things. Our breeding technology has been way ahead. Farmers have bulls that come from cows that give a lot of milk. If you have a dairy farm, you can buy the spermatozoa from that bull and we'll ship it all over the country. It comes in liquid nitrogen, and then you artificially inseminate that cow. They're getting at the point now where they're talking about actually shipping you embryos, and maybe you can implant those. They're not at the point yet that the farmers can do that, but the farmers can do the other one. You don't need a vet to do that. And so we have been very selectively breeding animals, cows, chickens, pigs for a very long time. And it doesn't take much, even if you don't have the access to that many resources. Anybody can see in a herd, that's a good pig. It gives offspring that produce a lot of whatever you want to produce. Meat, eggs from a pig, I don't know. And you just breed more of those, and the ones that you don't like, that don't give traits you want, they just get used for bacon. And they never have any kids. And very quickly, farmers have always taken advantage for evolution. The only thing that was new about evolution is that we realized we could apply it to nature itself. The process of human selecting desirable traits in plants and animals by selective breeding, in which organisms breed together. I think we don't need to say it's now called. I actually put that in a different order, and we can get rid of a whole line. It's just selective breeding. Artificial selection is similar to natural selection. In which you have differences in survival. And reproduction. And we have the what is the word for all the different types of gene variants? Alleles. And evolution is just alleles change. In their frequency. So it is evolution, it's just an artificial evolution. We are choosing what survives. A modern day milk cow, dairy cow, wouldn't survive very well in the wild. It has been bred to give milk. There's many now species of chicken that we breed for meat. About 10 years ago, people got a little freaked out because they would cook their chicken they bought fresh from the store, and then it would still be red in the bone. And they were freaked out because maybe it wasn't cooked long enough, because we worry about things. There's a variety of salmonella and other things that we worry about in chicken meat that we don't worry about with beef. And so people are a little bit more intense, and they're like, no. It's because the bones are so young. It used to be the chickens had to be grown for longer, but they bred them to put on a lot of meat very fast, and so now they're slaughtered at a younger age. And so the bones aren't as well developed, and so you get a red coloring from the bones that you didn't normally get. They actually grow so fast now that if you didn't slaughter them, they would die of starvation very quickly, because they grow so rapidly that they outgrow their legs if you didn't do anything, and now they can't walk. We have done some rather extreme things. Think of the things that we've done to dogs, but imagine we didn't care at all about the end of their life and could they walk. Because the only thing an animal has to do if we're breeding it for food is just get to the point where we're going to slaughter it and have the most food possible. If you're working about dairies or eggs or anything like that, you don't have to worry about, you do have to worry about after that, it needs to be able to survive. There was a number of activists that freed animals. I think it was the UBC Research Farm. And in the article, they discussed how all of those animals were going to die rather terribly in the wild because they lacked all the mechanisms in order to survive in the wild. About the only domesticated animal we have that is, well, no, even the honeybee's been fairly reasonably bred, but they can also leave at any time. It's hard to build a fence for honeybees. Artificial selection also causes alleles to become more common. And then that, of course, causes the change in population. So, this all seems relatively similar to evolution. What is the main difference then between evolution and this?
This is like
Yeah, yep.
Evolution is natural, like you don't control it.
You don't control it, so who's controlling this one?
Humans.
Humans. Are humans. Now, in a technical sense, you could argue that natural selection is also being affected by humans, because we are now rapidly changing the environment that the animals are now adapting to. But we're not doing it directly. We just happen to also be changing the environment. So we are guiding the process in artificial selection, in natural selection. It's just what happens to be successful.
Technically, couldn't like another animal species also do this? Because like for example, like if there was like two bushes that both get eaten by rabbits, and one bush, like the rabbits don't eat their fruit. So actually, no, that doesn't make sense. I was thinking.
Oh no, you just invented. Why does the coffee bean plant have caffeine in it?
Because
animals want to eat it because
Yeah.
it gives them energy and a high.
Well, it gives them a heart attack in some cases. Caffeine's a poison to a lot of animals. Don't feed caffeine to your horse. Don't feed caffeine to your dog. Chocolate is poisonous to dogs and not to us. So the coffee plant wanted birds to eat it, and not other animals, because birds would take the seeds really far and then poop it out. And so they get to explore new lands and offspring far away and don't compete for resources. So they developed a poison that killed or hurt some animals and not the birds. And so, yeah, no, they're in that. But we call that natural selection because we consider that all part of the environment. Artificial selection, We are saying that we just reserve that term to mean humans are doing it. Another example is that ants, have you heard of aphid farms?
Yes.
What
But,
are aphid farms?
aphids often lived on plants naturally, but then over time we took them, it's basically like an ant farm, but it's aphids instead. It's just different bugs.
Oh, we didn't take them. Some ant species have taken aphids because aphids can secrete a sticky, sweet substance, and they farm them. So they keep them in pens, and then they milk them for their sap. And over time, some species of aphids look like they're being domesticated by the ants because their alleles are changing to become better at living with ants. Their benefit is that they get a place to live. There's a lot of their population, and then I say that benefit in that's just what evolution does. They are adapting to their area. One way to think about it too, someone pointed this out. They're also evolving each other because they're changing their environment. So the ants now have a brand new food source. So they are changing their behaviors and their alleles to take advantage of this. So you could equally say that the aphids are domesticating the ants to take care of them. And then someone pointed out, are we a domesticated species? And the species that domesticated us were, of course,
Plants.
wheat. Ever since we started farming, wheat or a variety of wheat has been training us how to grow better wheat and using techniques to make the wheat better. So much of our change in immune system physiology, one of our most recent changes have been the change to hunter-gatherer, to let's sit around animals with their feces all day and have a farm. That was a radical change in environment. It exposed us to a lot of new diseases, and we had to change a bit in order to do them. So there's going to be changes a bit on both sides. But artificial selection is just a term to mean evolution when humans do it. But really, evolution is just evolution. It's responding to the environment. If you considered us part of the environment, it would just be natural
So
selection.
what happens if we got an AI and we just told it, breed an animal for this trait, and that AI is doing all the breeding and is doing it? Is that still artificial, or is that still selective breeding then?
A hot dog is a sandwich. Because at that point, yeah, it is in the sense that we use the term, language is used to make things easier. And so artificial is to say humans did it. If we made an AI to do something for us, then we would say, oh, that's just a tool that's doing it. Right now, AI, you could consider, is training us to make better AI. There are the humans, rather than by the natural environment. And what I mean by natural is non-human. So I'm using this in the vernacular that we are some sort of artificial. Are humans part of nature?
Yes.
Yes.
So in one sense, it's a nonsense way to do it, but it's a very convenient way to say it's, this was bred by humans versus this just happened in nature. So in the other sense, we're a part of the natural environment. We can evolve things just like the ants could. We just do it better because the ants suck at it. Animal breeding. All domesticated. Now, just to be clear, domesticated doesn't mean tame. Tame is wild but trained, or actually, I'm going to get rid of that. Tame equals trained, because you could have a trained animal that's domesticated. You could have a domesticated animal that's never been trained and still hard to work with. Domesticated means bred for humans.
It all comes back to the
Yeah. At some point, dogs approached a human campfire, and dogs are probably the earliest domesticated animal. Some wolves approached a human campfire, and instead of attacking the humans, we threw them some meat, and they decided that that was a good life. And we managed to tame them, and they were still wild animals. They weren't domesticated. They were still wolves. But they stuck around, and they protected the camp or provided some sort of service. Maybe we just like giving good boys pets. I don't know. But once we did that, and they stuck around, over time, we got dogs. Dogs are not wolves. They have a very different set of alleles, and their instincts will be different. Wolves had a lot of wild instincts, and the best one I can show, I can't remember which zoo it was, San Diego. They had a chimpanzee, and the chimpanzee in the area when it's not being viewed by humans, it has a private area because they can't stand being looked at all day. They need rest. So it likes watching TV, apparently cooking shows and some other shows that I won't mention. But it would sit down, it would relax. A trainer that this chimpanzee loved, thought it was the greatest trainer in the world, walked in and frightened the chimpanzee. The chimpanzee leaped up, grabbed the trainer, and ripped his arm from his socket. Because chimpanzees have way more strength than humans on a natural level. So all the blood going there, fight or flight, ripped it off. Soon as that happened and it calmed down, it sat back down and watched TV. It was trained, but it still had wild instincts. If it's not domesticated, they're still very dangerous. You still have to treat them like a wild animal, even if they're highly trained. A tiger is not safe to turn your back on. So what's his name? The tiger guy that came out a number of years ago.
Mike Tyson?
No. What was her name?
The Tiger King?
He had a catchy song
the tiger.
about Carol Baskin.
Yeah, wasn't it Tiger King?
Tiger King, yeah, it was that. He sold tigers, and they are trained, but they're not domesticated. They have not bred to interact with humans. So the reason they can hurt you quite badly is you have to still treat them as they're wild, and they can lull you into this false sense of like, oh, they're safe, I pet them all the time. But if they get hungry, they're still gonna eat you because you are still food. There's a good argument that we've never actually truly domesticated the cat.
Oh yeah.
Because if you die,
They'll eat you.
and there is a dog in your house versus a cat in your house, the dog often won't eat you,
No, but it's still
but the
saying
cat will.
that most dog species will, but only once they start starving.
Yeah, they have to
The
get
cat
to
is,
that
like,
limit.
immediately.
Even humans will eat you when they start starving. But there's also a difference in the type of domestication. When you look at what's a good animal to domesticate, ask yourself, like, when Europeans arrived on the shores of, let's say, Australia, why didn't they meet cavalry on zebras? Or when they arrived on the shores of Africa, there should have been people riding rhinoceroses into battle. There weren't. And it turns out it's really hard to domesticate animals. They have to have the right traits to select for. So you need a pack animal with a leader with a social structure. Dogs have a social structure. They're a family unit and they follow dad or mom and they know who's in charge. So all we've done is we've bred them to keep the social structure and assume that we're in charge. And if you interact with a dog incorrectly, they'll just reorganize the pack and they're in charge, but they really understand it. So dog trainers will train you how to teach the dog that you're in charge, and now you're properly using a domesticated dog. But you can't do that with zebras because although they have herds, they have nobody in charge. So they're really hard to breed to actually use them for anything. Horses do have a structure in which one mating pair is in charge, mom and dad. So those are much easier to do if we want those types of animals. Rhinoceroses also don't. It would be very difficult to domesticate a rhinoceros for that particular purpose. You can domesticate them for food, grow them. Cats might be particularly tasty. I've heard they taste like chicken. But there are species of dog that were specifically made to grow for food. And you can still order a horse in France, I think.
In France?
Yeah.
It's your land.
What can you order? That's your land.
Sorry?
What can you order, sorry?
Horse.
Horse.
Horse, yeah.
Yeah, and you can buy it, I think, ground in the grocery store.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's like UK and the US
That
ate
wasn't my
horse for a
question.
long
That's
time.
a horse.
Big Mac.
I don't
I
care
don't
what
like
it
horse. No, I don't like
Horse.
horse.
A horse Big Mac would be awesome.
That would be crazy.
I think in Kazakhstan it's normal to eat horse.
Master told you.
Does it just taste like awful?
The only reason it's odd in North America, because
You can eat that.
it would have been normal to the settlers coming here, but when they came here, horses were rare and valuable, and you needed them to get around in this big sprawling expanse. Interesting to note, the horses that were the indigenous people were using when colonists met them were the horses themselves were not indigenous. The horse had died out in North America, but they escaped from some settlements and then became wild herds. And as soon as the indigenous people saw them, they domesticated them like in a generation. Boom. Some animals are just easier domesticated. That horse was already it was already bred to be domesticated, so they were able to take advantage right away. We didn't have anything else over here that could be easily domesticated. So they're products of hundreds of years of artificial selection by farmers. Wolves are the first. How should I put this? No, dogs, because I don't want to breed wolves twice. The Eurasian gray wolf. The husky, I think, is the domesticated dog that is closest.
Yeah, but what about dodos?
Dodos are dead. What?
For a bit there, didn't we, like, we did raise them and did domestic, like, we.
Dodos were never domesticated. They all died on the island they originated on because sailors would stop there, capture them, and barbecue them.
I thought for a bit, a couple of them were, like, taken off the island and bred.
Oh,
and later they all died.
We had a few in zoos, but they didn't last very long.
Yeah.
They didn't breed well in captivity. And that's the other thing, is if you get an animal and you get it into captivity, the other part of domestication is they have to want to mate. I'm sure if you took a couple of you and put you in a cage and everybody was watching, you might never produce children. It's very, weird. Everybody's like, oh, the panda wants to die because they can't get it to breed. But it has an environment. It's perfectly happy to do it there. Just doesn't want to do it into a zoo. That's true for a lot of animals. It's difficult to breed a lot of different animals. It just turns out for a few it wasn't, and we took advantage of that. So we got the gray wolf. That became the ancestor of all the dogs you see, and a long time ago. There is recent evidence that when you smell a dog, that there are some genes that activate you that affect your hormones so that you are better at bonding with the dog. We have had them so long, they have likely affected our own evolution. I say that as someone who doesn't want a dog, but we may have bred ourselves to interact with them. They do a lot of good for us. They protected our campfires for a very long time. And maybe we should stop breeding them so their eyes pop out, but that's just me.
I love dogs.
I love the dog, but when we breed them so that they have and they can't breathe, because we take their nose and we do this, and they're like, and now they can't breathe. They have more chance of lung infection. They get sick more often. There's all these health effects that are just. All we need to do is say, you know what? Instead of having a nose that's 1.5 inches long, maybe we could allow 3 inches and actually have a proper dog. Okay.
Yeah, I know. No, I know this thing, but I'm not talking about just not.
Bacon. Okay, what animal species have we bred for meat production?
Cows.
Cows, pigeons,
Pigs.
cows, pigeons, yes.
Chicken. Yeah, chicken. What's the
Pigeons.
horse's name?
Bunnies.
What's the name?
Pigs.
Chicken.
Lambs. What was that?
Lambs.
Lambs.
No.
Mmm.
Poultry. Yeah, that's right.
Poultry. Well, chickens.
Yeah.
Bunnies.
Goat. Goat is an incredibly versatile animal. Goat milk, goat fur, goat meat. We've been doing this for a fairly long time. There's so many different varieties. I do like the Homer Simpson one, where Lisa Simpson announces that she's becoming a vegetarian. And he's, because she wants to save the animals. And he's like, so you're just going to save the animals, the ones who make pork chops and ham and bacon. And he's like, that's all the same. That's all the same animal. And he's like, yeah. a magic animal that makes those three things. Pigs are close enough to our own circulatory system that there is some interest in going, let's breed a pig with GMOs to have a human heart. And then when you need a heart transplant, you get a heart and pig.
Wait, but what is
But
it?
that already happened.
Pardon?
What is it?
Oh, just write down like at least 3 examples. I got cows, pigeons, pigs, lambs, chickens, goat, whatever you want to write down.
Wait, but what is the third one?
Pigs. P I G S.
They already
Yes.
started with the pig heart transplant, like
Yeah.
the testing. They did it on.
They did it on one guy. He lived
It
for
was-
3
yeah.
months.
Oh yeah, no, they've used pig hearts. But what if we what if we put the genes in for an actual human heart?
So what you're
What if they
saying
breed
is you make it
humans that we
extra.
have extra organs?
Humans with extra organs?
No, just
Oh yeah, no, that's an actual thing, because if we could use animals right now, we have more people who need transplants than we have transplants. If you're on the transplant list, it is not an uncommon outcome that you will be waiting for the transplant so long that you'll get too sick and now you're not allowed to have a transplant.
So you just die.
So you just die.
Is it true? Can you like put like organs of a pig inside you?
You could, yes. The problem is with the rejection, your immune system goes, that's not human. This is a foreign invader. Maybe it's a flu and attacks it. It's your heart now, but it doesn't know and it just kills it.
They've also used cow.
Yeah, so you need immunosuppressant drugs for the rest of your life. We're getting a little bit better at that. But if we could make a human heart with human proteins in it, that would be less likely to be rejected. So they're looking at it, but they've tried. Some they do. Valves, for example. There's valves in your blood that only let blood transport one way. Take the valves that are one, clean it up really well. They put those in. The more we can find, the more we can help people. Because often the natural, the organic versions are often better than our mechanical versions. What do we use now? Some up there are those are for meat. For milk, we have goat, cow.
Pig.
You've had pig milk? Really?
Yeah.
Donkey. Horse.
Horse?
Horse milk I have heard of.
Actually?
Yeah, yeah. And I would like to point out,
For a period,
That-
it wasn't.
to be very clear, soy milk is not milk.
It's the blood.
It's juice. When you squeeze a nut or a fruit, you get juice. So you have fruit juice and you have nut juice, but you do not have milk.
Why is it white?
Milk is white because it has fat in it.
No, like the nuts. Nuts.
Because it's
Oh, they have a lot of fat in it. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of nuts, you can light them on fire and they'll just burn because of the amount of oil in them. Yeah. And that's why people treat them as a milk in their cereal. They're fatty enough they can replace milk, and in the end, I shouldn't make fun of it because it is replacing a milk and not a juice in that case. What animals do we use for physical labor?
horses.
Horse?
Donkeys.
Donkeys?
Or mules. I don't know.
I'll with horse and donkey, we've covered mule. Camel?
Oxes.
Pigeons.
Ox? I hadn't thought of pigeons, but that is true. The most intelligent one of all?
Dog.
Ravens.
Humans.
Dolphins.
Hawks.
Dolphins. Like,
There's
where are you
slime.
going?
Dolphins? No, the large gray wise ones.
Elephants.
Elephants.
Oh.
I don't know.
What about dogs? We use them for like police.
Definitely dogs belong up there. Dogs belong here. Dogs belong. I don't think we've ever milked dogs. But if
sure
someone said,
somebody's desperate
someone somewhere may have. Obviously,
I've seen it.
main uses, carrying people or stuff, tilling fuels, a lot of mechanical labor, elephants as well. Specialized, carrying messages for pigeons, very specialized. Dolphins, for a while, were trained as Navy members. They had a entire group that were trained to carry bombs and then they could get close to submarines or ships and blow them up. The dolphin would not survive.
So you like 1v1
They turn them into
Yeah.
suicide
Yeah.
bombers.
Literally 1v1 at all.
There has been some people suggesting we could use them to help farm, but I don't think that's ever been successful. Dogs, of course, have been in all sorts of things, from police dogs to just labor. They have also tilled fields. They have also carried us, particularly if you can get a lot of them in a row and put it on snow.
Use
Um,
penguins, there's a lot of
That rhymes.
Can we what?
them. Like, use penguins.
Penguins. I don't think we've used penguins for manual labor yet.
No, not manual labor, like the same reason they use dolphins. Like,
Oh,
bombs.
I don't think we have, but I'd be
And
curious.
just like design an
Design-
egg that's
okay,
a
no, no,
bomb
now-
to protect the
Now
egg
we've
and
gone
hold
from
the
what
egg,
we do
right?
use to cool science fiction.
Put
We're gonna
penguins
start
on
about
all
it.
the eggs.
Ahem.
Just make that a bomb
Stop.
that looks like your egg.
Because I'm going to move. Question?
Don't we use like frogs or spiders to like clean our crops from like
Oh, in terms of, I don't know if we've domesticated any for that purpose, but we do some sort of if we grab this species, it will eat this pest.
yeah.
So yes, for that reason, if you see a spider in your house and it's spinning a web, leave it alone.
No.
If you take it outside, that is a house spider. It has co-evolved with us to live in houses. And if you take it outside and you gently put it outside, it will die. However, that is not the normal spider you see. The spider you see that bothers you is normally the big one that's crawling across the floor. Those are hunters. They're wolf spiders. They'll do fine outside. You can get rid of them. But once it's spin a web, they're eating the mosquitoes. They're eating the pests. They're eating all the things in the house you don't want. Keep those. They're actually really valuable.
Can I do the third option?
What's
Take
the-
them and show them to my sister so she freaks
No,
out.
that's not a third option. If you do need to take them outside, take them to a shed. They're literally evolved to be inside. This is how long we've evolved or domesticated everything. So here we got dog. Quite a long time. I think this is they didn't put the line, but I believe it's 20,000 years ago. And then we have sheep, cows, pig, cats. Cats just sort of hung around and got us as servants. Llamas, horses. I don't know what that is. Alpaca. Camel, chicken. Oh, they have two different types of camels up there. I didn't know they had a different domestication. Interesting. Turkeys, relatively recently because they're in North America. And then ducks. Ducks are relatively recent. Okay, next up, plant breeding.
I used to have a dog.
Go, 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 go.
Yeah, I used to have
That's annoying.
Focus. Almost all the plant foods where we go are domesticated as well. They don't really grow that well as weeds. We have to do a lot of effort. But our effort is paid off because the amount we've been able to breed for the food. Here's the picture that I was thinking of, and it turns out it actually pasted in here. So it's just gone to the next page of notes. This is the original corn plant. You see a row of seeds, and that's it. You can still find a relative of that growing nowadays that looks much like that. It hasn't changed a terrible lot. So the wild versions still are like that. Versus modern cord, which is multiple ones all the way around, quite heavy and yields a lot of fruit. Even before we started actual farming, as in we stay in one place, we build a structure, and then we plant rows, humans have been domesticating plants for a long time. Even when we were migratory hunter-gatherers, you'd find a place with plants, you would protect the plants you liked, and then you would make sure that they would get seeded properly. And ones you liked more, you would help spread their seeds. So there's areas of domestication before humans even really, you would say, had farms. We've been domesticating a lot of different plants for a long time. So they've all had long periods of artificial selection. What was the first? Was it corn? Grains. Yeah. That goes back to we may have been...
Rice.
Are we just being trained by grains to grow more grains? If you were a hunter-gatherer human, you had on average more leisure time than modern humans. We are free from more disease and other things, but whether or not we actually get to relax more is up. Did we actually improve when we managed to domesticate these things? Or did they just convince us by the readily supply of food and donuts? So we got seeds. I think I'm going to soon show you, I think it's coming up, the worst plant in existence. So we've got grains, wheat, and those types of things, rice, peas, beans. All of those are seed plants that we eat for food. And then we have fruit plants. Apples, oranges, berries. And then we have leaf plants, lettuce, spinach, kale, that we eat for food. And then we have root plants. And then different type of root plant, the tuber. It's a different part of the plant. We exaggerate that and we get a whole carrots, beets, I think potatoes. Would all go there. So you take a different part of the plant that's edible and you can breed for that part to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is the worst plant of all time. The common wild mustard. It gave us all of the things that I hate with an incredible passion. Before the 80s, the #1 sale for kale plants was for restaurant displays to put examples of their food on. It took the place of like paper. And it was about as edible. And then they had a marketing campaign about how healthy it was and look at all the fiber. And then people started spinning it up into their smoothies and then they had salads and it's awful. It's bitter and I hate it.
You just don't know how to
That
do it.
is from the leaf.
I love
Now, you take one part of the stem and you expand it and you grow that, you get broccoli. I hate broccoli. It's brittle, it's not brittle. It is bitter and it's awful. You take a different part of the fruit and you breed that and you get cauliflower, which is the flower of the plant just made big, and it is awful. It is tasteless and bitter. How can you be that? It doesn't make sense. This is why you can get broccoli flower, because these are essentially the same plant. So if you take broccoli and cauliflower and breed them together, you can get a green cauliflower. Somehow worse. Cabbage. You take part of a certain type of its leaf, breed the heck out of it, you get all those overlapping leaves, and you get cabbage. A bitter, bad tasting leaf. However, that one you can make good, but it requires you to fry it in a lot of butter, because then, and this is important, it will taste like butter. Brussels sprouts,
No.
still awful. I will say though, they have improved. When I was a child, these were so bitter and so disgusting. And then in the early 90s, someone found a variety, a spontaneous mutation, that were just less bitter. They tasted better. And that has replaced all the, everybody was like, that one's way better. And now that's all they grow.
If you put Brussels sprouts with like Parmesan and
If you take
is good.
Don't, I must
wood shavings and put it down with butter and Parmesan, you'll probably think it's kind of good.
It is good.
50.
If I eat an apple, it's fine, the way it is. If I eat Brussels sprouts, I have to put on bacon and butter and Parmesan or whatever, olive oil, fry it, salt, pepper. It's awful. This is the last chance. Has anybody had this?
It's my favorite vegetable.
Excellent.
It's so good.
So what you're saying is if I eat this, I will not think it's terrible and bitter? Because that's the last one. I've never had it.
It's
No, but the
Is
there
it
is,
50s?
It's no. It's
That-
like
that
a mix
plant
of a.
looks-
It's think of it as just a giant, not very like radishy radish.
Radishes are the second worst vegetables I've ever had.
What? No, they don't have like the.
All of these are number one because they're the same plant.
It's
But
like a
the-
mix
what
between an
makes
apple
one
and
thing
a
that's good. It
Oh,
makes
between
mustard.
an apple and a radish? Oh, maybe I might try that.
The
I might try
plant
that.
makes mustard. That's the one thing that I can say is good.
The mustard part, I like. None of those other things.
Like,
You don't like broccoli?
No, it's awful.
Even when it's like seasoned and stuff?
well, now they
Do you
make
like
Oh
sweet
yes, if we
potatoes.
took wood chips and seasoned them, they'd probably taste kind of good.
We do that though. That's
Yeah.
the
Well, if it doesn't
What
taste
if
good
it's
on its
boiled?
own,
Like-
pardon?
What if it's just
Kale
boiled?
chips.
Yeah, the nice
No.
boiled,
Literally
limp,
water.
gray, disgusting broccoli.
Not everything can have like a lot of I think broccoli.
Yeah, not everything is good. I agree.
No.
Well done. Another example. This is the original peach from about 4000 BC.
It's like a cherry.
25 millimeters. It does look a lot like a cherry. It had quite a bit of seed stone in it. It had a very hard, waxy skin. Only found in China. Domesticated it, bred it. In China, they made the peach, and now that has been exported to around the world. We grow it around the world. The amount of edible fruit has increased. The pit increased too, but not as rapidly as the fruit. And we have a variety of flavors. Evolution isn't always good. Artificial selection isn't always good. We pretty much killed the red delicious.
I have a question. Why
Yep.
does it say 10% stone?
That's the seed in the inside. That's the
They just
stone.
call it a
So this
stone.
was 36% stone. And now, yeah, it's a stone fruit.
Oh.
Stone fruit are ones that have that really hard seed inside. They're called stones. You may have gone to. How many of you? Does anybody like the red delicious apple? It's the very bright red, 5 points in the bottom, the cheapest apple. You like that one?
Oh, I actually like it.
Interesting. You guys are crazy people. It used to be called the Hawkeye back when it was invented. I think it was first grown. I think the earliest Hawkeyes were in the 1930s. It was red and yellow striped. And it was considered the best tasting apple that anybody had ever had. It became incredibly popular. Someone bought the rights to it in terms of they got the rights to the name, and they got a lot of the trees, and they started marketing it to customers. And what they found is that about this time, once we started hitting the 50s, buying fruit shifted from buying it fresh on the farm to buying it in a grocery store. And in a grocery store, it's got to look good. So a very bright red apple. So they started breeding for bright red, and they also started breeding for longevity. Can it last on a shelf for a long time? And that's when it started to get that kind of a mushy consistency and a real drop in flavor. You can still get a reasonably good Red Delicious if you get it off the farm, but you have to ripen it for much, much longer than they do to make it shelf stable. And there are some original Hawkeye varieties around if you can find them. You can taste what the Red Delicious still comes from. All of our really good, if you've ever gone out and had a Cosmic Crisp, what's some of the other, Fuji I think is reasonably good. Those are usually all different varieties of the original Hawkeye. So they're all different cases of the same apple being evolved, but we artificially selected one for its looks and lost the flavor. And we did that deliberately. So capitalism ruins everything, seize the means of production. Communism wins. It only recently lost its number one spot, though. For a long time, until I think this year, it was the number one selling apple. One of those reasons being, once you plant an orchard, that goes for 30, 40, 50 years. It's really expensive to plant a new orchard and cut those trees down, wait for a new one to grow, and start getting reasonable plants off of it. So although nobody really wanted to eat it anymore, it was the cheapest apple. And they're still growing it. Right now, their biggest market is China. They ship a lot of the Red Delicious that nobody wants here because in China, red is considered lucky, and they find, this is not even, like you can find this in their marketing. They ship it to customers who haven't tasted it before, so they don't know how bad it is, and then they keep switching the markets. A little predatory sales there. Okay, modern agriculture. And certainly if you're buying an apple just for decoration. Oh, sorry. I forgot a piece of notes on this one. Right at the bottom here. Yeah. evil plant. There you go.
Just kill everything in the field and then you have that one thing. Everything in like 20 square plus. Dead.
When I was 7 years old, I planted a garden. My mom helped me because I wanted to. And then I found out afterwards that one of the rows was beets. And I was pretty sure that if I planted them, my mom would make me eat them. So, just in case, I destroyed the whole garden. I went out with a hoe and I wrecked everything. I don't want to eat that.
Beets are pretty yummy.
The worst
Bees.
is courge.
They are the third worst plant. And pickled beets are the, oh.
Have you tried the ones in the salad bar? They're good. The pickled beets.
Have I tried the one? I don't like to smell them.
That's pretty darn. Pretty scrumptious.
Quick, from social studies, how many people on the planet right now?
8 billion?
8 something.
8 point question mark billion.
I think
It's like 8.2.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Okay.
But
We have to feed those people. Every single day, we need to feed those people. That is a lot of people. It is very difficult to grow food sustainably without having a large farm. One of the things that we do continue to do is build cities on our Build Best Farmland right on the river where we want to grow food. It would be ideal if we could take those cities up and then move them somewhere else. Vancouver, a city on our best farmland. All of that sprawl is where we originally had farms. We need to grow a lot of food. We need to grow food that everybody can afford. If you grow more expensive food, every time food goes up in price, we can measure that in the number of people who are starving in the world. Even if we can afford the food, that means we're buying it from somewhere and taking it away from somebody as soon as it
Yeah,
becomes a
but
little bit more expensive.
if one of them just becomes more expensive, but like if the same amount of food is still produced, then there shouldn't be an increased amount of people
Same amount of
starving.
food is usually not, if it's more expensive, it often indicates as well it's harder to produce. So one of the problems with, say, you are a regular conventional farmer and you grow cherries, right? And you produce 2 tons of crop.
Yep.
But you realize right now the market is hot for organic cherries. You can sell that for 3 times the price. And you were growing 2 tons, but now you grow 1 ton. But you're going to sell it for 3 times the price, so you're still going to make a better profit. So you grow 1 ton. That's 1 ton of food that has disappeared from the market. And that makes the conventional cherries go up in price because they're now more in demand. So every time more expensive food enters the market, it actually increases the price of most food, and that is difficult for some people to afford that food. So we do have to be very careful. Borlaug should have a statue to him. He's probably responsible for saving at least 3 to 4 billion people on the planet. He's a farmer and a scientist who went from country to country teaching modern farming methods. I think there's a statue to him in Vietnam.
Is he the guy that
Um,
figured out how to take nitrogen out of the air?
no. That's a sad story.
Well,
He's
he also
yeah.
invented chlorine gas,
Yeah,
but-
that's a whole separate story. But he did a lot of, all over the world. He's saved so many lives by just increasing the amount of domestic food that they can make, and did some excellent work with that. And he did it just by improving their agriculture. Now, there's a lot of problems with capitalism and monoculture. So we do have this. We are now growing a lot of food. This can feed a lot of people. But if one disease hits those soybeans, they're probably all clones. It's going to kill the entire crop. So monocultures also have a danger. So whenever we make things more complicated, we make food more expensive. But also, when we make things more complicated, it may protect against disease. So there's a lot of things to weigh here when we're trying to feed that many people. Of the, what the heck? Oh, that makes sense. I said monoculture. I just spelled this wrong. We grow a lot of the same kind. called a monoculture. So one of the criticisms of large-scale farming is it's all owned by one person. If we use the same amount of farmland, but we cut it down into more family-sized farms, even though they're farming the same amount, they would probably choose different varieties. We'd end up with the same amount of food. It is easy for an organization to plan when they're all growing the same things. But if we spread it out a little bit, sometimes it's better. One of our worries of modern agriculture is all being controlled by larger and larger groups.
Wouldn't it just be better to replace things like soy, which are like very not calorie dense, with like potatoes? Which
Soy-
are way more calorie
Soy
dense?
has high protein and takes a lot of the soy. Soy is pretty good. Potatoes have their own problems because potatoes have there's a lot of areas in the world where you can't grow potatoes because the disease in the soil will make them go all soft and mushy. They're very difficult to grow here in the island. So you will often find the soil has been pre-poisoned by a fungus that eats potatoes. And so you can't always do that. Also, not everybody just wants to eat potatoes. So they're just growing what people want. You want soybeans, they'll grow soybeans. But they're all growing the same kind of soybean in many cases. Different varieties help protect against future changes in climate and different changes
So
in
solution is
area.
we just find something that can poison all soybeans, we can get rid of vegans.
No, because vegans aren't bad. Remember, if you think that vegans are bad, it's a bit like the common bias for Canadians and other people when they talk about Americans visit our country. No, an American tourist visited your country. Go talk to Americans; they're very nice. The vegans that don't bother you, that aren't very loud about things. I mean, I've had just as obnoxious a conversation with someone who wanted to tell me about how much meat they ate as someone who wants to tell me about veganism. So, people eat what they want.
My mom is vegan. More
Yeah.
30% of the time. How does that work?
She eats steak every now and then. She's mostly.
And some people do it based on time. One of the things you can do that would really help the environment, you don't have to be vegan. Just have like a meatless Monday once in a while. The production of cattle and meat as food, particularly in modern agriculture, is just high resource dependent. It takes a lot of water, and the plants that they're eating also could have been used to grow food that people would eat directly. A little bit more efficient.
But the
Yep.
water there, the water, it just goes in and cycles out. Like it's not.
But the amount that comes out is not always sufficient for everybody in that. Here, now, we have to conserve water in the summertime. So the water cycle doesn't rescue you for that. There's still a limited amount of water. And there's many places in the world where they have been getting away with it because they've been pumping water from the ground and those reservoirs are starting to dry. So just because we pump more in doesn't mean that cycle is making it all come back. Some of it just goes in the ocean and you get the same cycle. So yeah, it doesn't matter what you eat. Vegetarians are helping. It is a little bit less impactful on the environment if you're vegetarian. Vegan, if that's more, I think vegan is more about the ethical, whether you think we should use animal. The greatest, I think, debate I've seen so far is a vegan debate about whether honey should be considered vegan. Because unlike any other animal product, if bees don't like you, they'll leave. They're not kept in a pen. They've just got pretty homes you made, and if they don't like what you're doing, they can fly away. So maybe it's the only ethical consumption. And then some people get really mad, and then some people are, I'm curious where that's going to go.
Why is he looking at me like that?
So, modern agriculture uses a lot of machines. We want to put as much food in the smallest amount of land as possible. And often to make it easier to grow, for doing that, a monoculture, so we give the same treatments to the plants. We can grow a lot of food that way, and our rapid expansion as a species has been, in large part, our ability to provide sustainable, cheap food. The infant mortality drop worldwide over the last 50, 60 years has been in large part to the amount of cheap, clean, good food that more people could afford. The amount of food we have been able to produce has gone up quite a bit. It's really efficient. So when we look at world population, way back in here, the amount that we could produce sometimes was under the amount needed for that population. So parts of the world starved. And at a certain point, we now produce more food than we need. There is no reason for anybody on the planet to starve other than unequal distribution. When you think of the amount of food that we waste, obviously there's enough food. It's cheap food. We're just not giving away. How many of you have heard of the Irish potato famine? Excellent, lots of you. Why did the Irish people starve? Yes?
It's because their main source of food were like los potatoes.
And why was that? Did Ireland produce enough food to feed its population?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except the potatoes had like a disease.
Potatoes were what the local people, the Irish people, would grow in their own gardens to feed themselves. When there was a potato shortage, and there were people growing commercial potatoes, the landlords, often English, then said, well, we're going to sell the crops because we want to make money. And so they took the food out of Ireland, sold it, and the people in Ireland starved. So it wasn't that there wasn't enough food, it was, once again, capitalism.
It was the food they did have.
Seize the means of production.
So we have 25% more food than required, and people still starve.
We produce more food than we need. And it isn't a matter of like, I hated when my parents literally used the line, like there's people starving elsewhere, you should eat that. It doesn't help, it's here, it's not gonna get there.
I think.
But we could distribute the food more
I
fairly.
think the reason why is they're counting like asparagus and broccoli as food.
I agree with you
That
there,
statistic there, so then I think
But-
that's why.
but people like Zane think this is food. And I don't understand that too, so. Okay, this is the last page, we're gonna do it. We've got 3 minutes left. And the next day, I wanna work on a project thing, and that's gonna be our biology. So, because I've told you that we make food efficiently, we make more than we need, and we're fantastic. But I haven't discussed the problems. I grew up on a dairy farm. Those are Holsteins. Holsteins are wonderful. They are a little touchy. One of the problems is that it lacks genetic diversity. If you're producing a monoculture, then anything that wipes that species out is going to wipe all of it out, and now you don't have a backup. So we need people growing lots of different species for longevity. What? Hold it. I think I printed this. That picture's not supposed to be that big. Oh dear.
And there's two pictures at the bottom.
Lacks genetic diversity. More vulnerable. To disease. This is supposed to be crops. Different color here. Don't write in green on green. Crops selected for their efficiency. For their efficiency, not taste or nutrition. For the first time ever, some zoos have stopped feeding their the wild animals in the zoo fruits. They've gone all what we would classify vegetables. Because we have bred the fruits to have so much sugar in them, they're now giving the animals diabetes. So even our farm produce is approaching candy. The other part, and this is the reason some people may go vegan, is animal welfare. I've said several times, capitalism ruins everything. Market forces determine the welfare of crops and animals. Now, I don't really care what happens to a plant. But if someone is torturing an animal every day, even if I'm going to eat it, I care about that. And that's independent of how efficiently they can be grown. We still have to consider things like animal welfare. And so if you know where your eggs come from, it doesn't matter if they're organic or not, if they keep them outside, the chickens come in, you don't have to worry that they're being kept in rows of pens. Okay, next day we're going to talk about a project. We have done all the notes in biology we're going to do. Thank you. That was 2 days of concentrated work. No, I want to hold on to it. But you now should know enough to do all of it if you haven't already.
I really want to. You should do one that's
Oh my god.
Is it the same thing as
That cow photo is Tom. That's the gap.
Kristen? She don't in you. But it won't work. No, you took it.
Thank you. Thank you. What the guy don't